Hello, I'm Tom Hollingsworth, and this is Networking Field Day 13. We are here in sunny Silicon Valley, California, with SolarWinds. You are about to watch a presentation featuring SolarWinds and their unique solutions and products, along with a group of delegates around the table who represent the best and brightest in the networking industry. They have been invited to ask questions, make comments, and offer their opinion, and represent the networking community at large. If you would like to know more about Tech Field Day, including how to become a delegate or how to become a sponsor of this event, please go to our website at techfieldday.com. If you would like to see more videos like this about a wide range of technology subjects, please check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/techfieldday.
Okay, so hopefully the basics of NetPath make sense to you guys. The next thing I want to look at is how it looks to make a path. Actually, let's see here. Date on our progress. Yeah, we're gonna look at some of your paths next. Okay, so I need to jump on over to the VPN. I'm on the VPN, which is great. Okay, so I was accessing Orion demo through that. Okay. Okay, so this is an instance we have running in our one of our labs in the Czech Republic, and I probably should have sort of gotten it fresh before we started talking about or started loading it live here. So this is in one of our offices, and hopefully you guys have some targets. So I'm going to jump over to NetPath services again. We're going to build some paths. It's actually very, very easy to build a path, which is one of the things we're excited about. You know, when we're thinking about how, like, we want to attack troubleshooting head on, and what that means is we have to be very considerate about the limitations of the data set you have in the first 2 minutes of troubleshooting. And what we realize is in almost all troubleshooting scenarios, the symptom is lack of connectivity or some poor performance, some high latency, some packet loss, something like this. And you know the source and the destination of that. So that becomes your entry point into creating a new path here. So I'll click Create a New Service. Anyone have a service that they would like to see the path to? Accessible from the internet?
Techfieldday.com.
Techfieldday.com.
Important website.
Port 80 or 443? Anyone know what the default is? What do you use in your browser? Do you guys redirect?
Load it up. 80.
80, okay. All right, Google, even if you go on 80, they'll redirect you to 443, right? So you have to be somewhat cognizant of that. Okay, and I'm going to leave the probing interval default, leave the alias, doesn't matter here. Notably, this works for any TCP-based application, so any TCP port you can put in there.
So if it's a site that's going to redirect you to 443, all you're really doing is testing the redirect if you don't specify 443? That's
correct, so that's the transit. So you'd want to consider, if the browser is going to redirect, then do I also want a path to 443? We'll get into this deeper, but we sort of mimic the application traffic so that we can get like performance, but we don't interact with the application a lot. We don't want to introduce new risk or new stuff for the application to deal with because we're probing it. Okay, so we've defined our service. That was the destination. The next one is defining our probe or our source of the path. So we're just going to use the one that's on this box. Now, traditionally, as I mentioned, you'd want to put that wherever you have users, big user bases, and you can just deploy probe straight from here. We'll do it with your Windows credentials. It does require admin access because we're writing packets and listening to all packets. So, or we would have access to listen to all packets, and then we parse those out for responses to ours. So you could click Create here, and it's going to go start polling that. We put in a 10-minute interval, so it'll take 10, 15 minutes.
So again, this polling, this probe has got to be on a polling engine. What are my deployment options one more time?
Any Windows-based device.
Yep.
Now, by default, you have one on your polling engine where you do all of the other monitoring. But really, we really hope the intent is that you would not monitor with NetPath from the same place you monitor the rest of your data center, right? We want to do this sort of distributed monitoring from where your users are.
Okay, and you may have said this, but do I get charged for the number of probes I'm deploying?
The probe counts as a node. So when you add a probe, we also monitor CPU and RAM. So it counts as a node. Traditionally, people are limited by interfaces. so functionally, we see this very rarely affect licensing. Our intent was really, if you have NPM, you have a whole bunch of NetPath. Use it at your discretion. Any other targets?
Whentowork.com.
Whentowork.com.
443.
443. Dub or no?
No dub.
Okay. Let's do one more. Someone's got a service they want to see a path to. What's your favorite website?
Well, so does it have to be HTTP? Is there something uniquely valuable of HTTP?
Nope, any TCP-based port.
Any TCP-based port. Okay, so we're not doing probes that are layer 7, cognizant.
Right.
Okay.
Any TCP-based port. So some examples of that, this is trying to go to something on the internet that we can access from our lab, so it has to be internet accessible. But internally, we use it for things like file shares. We develop a lot of binaries, so we move those around. Those are important for our business, so we check file shares. We can check Exchange, all of these sorts of things. Any other sites?
Do we ever do any kind of UDP monitoring, or is it always going to be TCP?
It's always going to be TCP. Yep. So SolarWinds.com is pretty important to me, so I'll add that in here. That's on port 80. I'll click next. Click create. So right away we've created 3 new paths. Looks like one of them finished polling. I don't know how it finished so fast. I'm a little nervous that it might be wrong now. Shouldn't be finishing that fast. But the temptation is there, so we're going to look at it. Okay. All right, so we've already got some pathing here. We don't see a lot of multipath. Now this office is in the Czech Republic. They're using T-Mobile. It's their internet provider in that office. So we go through 2 pieces of internal infrastructure. Now we don't have additional information here. Our IT guys were like, that's so cool, you made that application. I'm totally not going to provide you this information for your public demo about our infrastructure. So we don't have that data here. Then we connect to T-Mobile. T-Mobile connects over through level 3, which only has a single node, it looks like, to hop1, hop1.net, and finally mail.whentowork.com. Looks like that's a reverse DNS. So this is accessible from our office in the Czech Republic. We're seeing 105 milliseconds of latency. I think no loss. It's not. I don't see that anywhere on the path. Yeah, 0% loss. Okay, so we'll give it a minute for these others to populate. That usually totally takes more like 10 minutes. I don't know how it's just all working. Okay, I've never had a demo where things work better than expected. It's always the other way. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. T-Mobile again, here we go through Telia. So Telia has, just sort of parsing this out, the small circles are individual nodes, the larger circles are networks, right? And this number here is how many nodes you have in that network, at least for the sake of this path. So there's 35 nodes in this Telia network, so we'll click on this and test the browser's capability to render here. So one of the things we learned while we were doing this, internet's a little bit complicated, but you can see here we still get point by point what's the performance of this link, how much of my traffic, looks like 5% in this case, is going through this path, and all the individual components.
Okay, you pull that in based on a series of probes, and as each probe, do you rotate through the characteristics of the probe to try to force a multipath?
Yes. Okay, so we're going to jump forward. Hopefully you guys have seen.
I might have missed this. What's the refresh time on between probes?
We specify it during the creation there. You saw 10 minutes is the default. In general, for complex internet-based services, 10 minutes is a good idea. You can often get away with 5 minutes. For LAN side stuff or simpler paths, 2 to 3 minutes is about the minimum. There's quite a bit of probing that occurs to find all of the paths to make sure the performance characteristics of this specific component of this specific path is accurate enough and so forth. So you want to be careful about that.
So what is the...
But 10 minutes is the short answer.
Yeah, so how many probes are you sending every 10 minutes?
It depends. So we send the probing traffic, we listen to the responses, and we continue to interact until we think we've got a full picture.
Okay.
So when you have no multipath and a short LAN path, it'll take just a couple minutes, very little traffic. When you've got something like Yahoo, or in this case, Telia, it'll take up to 10 minutes.
Okay. And then if one of those paths disappears in future probes, does it just drop from the map?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so you can sort of navigate through the history as you saw me do before. But the important thing for us is if the end-to-end performance for the user isn't really impacted, we still think everything's green, right? Internet's changing all the time, so that's green to us.
Okay.
If you have
Question
multiple,
about a different use case. So you mentioned using it internally. And what I'm noticing when you set up the path, you're putting in ports. What I'm wondering is whether it would be possible for, say, a 3-tier application to start with a user who's hitting the web front end, let's say, do NetFlow, find out what they're hitting, and automatically treat that as a source for the next traffic somehow.
Yeah, we're spending a lot of brain cycles thinking about that, but there's nothing I'm prepared to share right now.
Yeah, you'd probably need an agent on a whole mess of your internal
There's definitely
servers.
ways to do it.
if you have multiple NetPath agents, does it run all of them from? Does it run all of your NetPath tests from all of those, or how do you specify which agents it's going to originate these tests from?
So if you go to NetPath services, you have your list of services, and then you can go and assign additional probes right here, or remove them. So you've got these
So
sort
is
of
it doing
two.
them all from default by default?
No, when you create the service, 55, sure, that's important. You specify what probes you
Okay.
want to go from.
Right.
Okay.
So it's not full mesh unless you configure it to be.
So do you define the agent inside of NetPath here, or do you do registration from the agent, back to the NPM server?
So when we went through that setup, like this tends to happen in all the presentations. When we went through the path creation, that's the full flow. We will go and deploy the probe for you, and then there's no software we have to deploy in the middle. So we'll go configure that probe, and you get the path. That's it.
Is there an option, can you configure multiple probes and view them all at the same time, so coming at it from different?
No.
No? Okay.
No, you can't do that. When you look at some of our paths, they get very complicated, and if you're not careful, the picture just gets, you can't understand what's on there. A lot of our paths to Yahoo, Google, and other services will have 50 to 100 nodes, and then many more than that in terms of edges. So it gets hard to sort of grok. But I think there is a way to do that. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Can you infer if a part of the path is a tunnel?
Not today. I'd like to be able to do that.